He was larger than life. He wasn't just a wrestler. He wasn't just an entertainer. He was a living, breathing symbol of an era, bigger than the ring he ruled, louder than the crowds he electrified, and more iconic than the title belts he wore. For millions around the world, Hulk Hogan wasn't just a name, he was the name. But behind the bright lights, the roaring chants, and the 24-inch pythons, there was a story most never saw coming. A story filled with ambition, reinvention, controversy, and ultimately, legacy. They called him a real American, a hero, a villain, a legend. But what really happened behind the curtain? And how did the man behind the bandana go from rock and roll hopeful to global wrestling phenomenon, and eventually to a bittersweet goodbye that shook generations? This is the rise, fall, and legacy of Hulk Hogan, the man who turned professional wrestling into a worldwide spectacle and paid the price for living like a myth. But before the fame chants, before Hulkamania ran wild, he was just Terry. The making of a legend. Before the arena lights and roaring fans, he was just a kid with a dream in Augusta, Georgia. Born on August 11, 1953, Terry Gene Bollea didn't grow up in the spotlight. He built his way to it. A shy, athletic teen with a surprising passion for music, Terry spent his early years strumming a bass guitar in local Florida bars, chasing rock stardom while balancing a love for baseball and bodybuilding. But something didn't click. Music wasn't enough. In 1976, everything changed. Terry walked away from the band, looked in the mirror, and decided he was going to become the greatest professional wrestler who ever lived. No fallback plan, no safety net, just raw confidence, bulging muscles, and an obsession with the squared circle. The transition wasn't glamorous. He started out wrestling under a mask going by the name the Super Destroyer, a far cry from the household name he'd become. But his size, charisma, and unmatched drive turned heads fast. Wrestling promoters saw potential, not just in his strength, but in his larger-than-life personality. Terry wasn't just showing up, he was taking over. And soon, the world would know his name, not as Terry Bollea, but as Hulk Hogan. But this was only the beginning, because the storm called Hulkamania hadn't even started yet. Hulkamania is born. By 1979, Terry Bollea had officially stepped into the WWE spotlight, and the transformation into Hulk Hogan had begun. But no one, not even Hogan himself, could have predicted what was coming next. He was massive, intimidating, charismatic beyond belief. But what truly made him different was how he connected with the crowd. When Hogan walked into an arena, it didn't feel like a performance. It felt like a movement. He wasn't just another wrestler in trunks. He was a superhero brought to life. The real explosion came in 1982, when he scored a role in Rocky III as the towering Thunderlips. That one scene, just minutes long, turned heads in Hollywood and opened doors Vince McMahon had been knocking on for years. Hogan wasn't just a wrestler, he was a crossover superstar. Suddenly, wrestling wasn't just for diehard fans. It was on MTV, in movie theaters, in pop culture, and at the center of it all was one man, Hulk Hogan. Then came January 23rd, 1984, Madison Square Garden. Hogan faced off against the Iron Sheik, dropped the infamous leg drop, and pinned him 1-2-3. In that exact moment, Hulkamania was born. Fans went berserk. Commentators called it history in the making. It wasn't just a win, it was the beginning of a revolution. From that day forward, Hogan became more than a champion. He became a symbol of pride, power, and patriotism. Kids were tearing their shirts, adults were chanting his name, and Vince McMahon had found the face that would take wrestling global. But as Hulkamania spread like wildfire, it wasn't just fans taking notice. Mainstream icon. By the mid-1880s, Hulk Hogan wasn't just a wrestler, he was everywhere. From cereal boxes to lunch boxes, action figures to arcade games, Hogan became a pop culture juggernaut. But this wasn't an accident. Vince McMahon had a plan, fuse wrestling with mainstream entertainment. And Hogan was the perfect vehicle. He headlined the first ever WrestleMania in 1985, teaming with Mr. T in what felt more like a Hollywood blockbuster than a wrestling match. The lines between athlete and entertainer blurred, And Hogan stood at the center of it all, flexing, pointing, and preaching the gospel of vitamins, prayers, and believing in yourself. His red and yellow gear became iconic. The handlebar mustache, instantly recognizable. And that theme song, Real American, was blasted at rallies, gyms, and even political events. Hogan's influence wasn't limited to the ring. He was on MTV, Saturday Night Live, talk shows, cartoons, and even dropped into the music scene during the rock and wrestling era. Kids idolized him, parents trusted him, America embraced him. And for a while, Hogan could do no wrong. He wasn't just part of the culture, he was the culture. But behind the bandanas and body slams, the pressure was mounting. Fame like this comes at a cost, and Hogan's spotless image wouldn't stay spotless forever. Rivalries and milestones, every hero needs a villain, and Hulk Hogan had plenty. From the explosive trash talk of Rowdy Roddy Piper to the unpredictable madness of Macho Man Randy Savage, Hogan's rivalries weren't just matches. They were events that defined eras. Each feud was a blockbuster, each promo a shot of adrenaline, and each showdown a cultural moment. But nothing compared to WrestleMania 3. In front of over 93,000 screaming fans at the Pontiac Silverdome in 1987, Hogan faced the unthinkable. Andre the Giant, a mountain of a man, unbeaten, untouchable. No one thought it could be done, but Hogan did the impossible. He lifted Andre off the mat and slammed him to the ground. The arena exploded. Commentators screamed. That single moment was etched into history. It wasn't just a wrestling move, it was a symbol. Hulk Hogan had become a living myth. His matches weren't just about titles. They were personal, passionate, electric. Whether battling the dark mystique of The Undertaker or the raw power of the Ultimate Warrior, Hogan delivered moment after unforgettable moment. The storylines may have been scripted, but the energy, that was real. And as the 1980s faded into the early 90s, Hogan's star didn't dim. It simply shifted. Hollywood came calling once again. TV shows, movies, interviews, he was now a crossover icon. But something darker was brewing. Because when you're the top of the mountain, there's only one direction left to fall. The shocking turn, Hollywood Hogan. For over a decade, Hulk Hogan was the face of heroism, red and yellow, clean cut, larger than life. But in 1996, everything changed, and fans never saw it coming. WCW was struggling. The competition with WWE, then WWF, was brutal, and Hogan's wholesome image was starting to feel dated. Crowds weren't cheering like they used to. The act was wearing thin. Then came Bash at the Beach. In one of the most shocking heel turns in wrestling history, Hogan walked to the ring, supposedly to defend the fans, and betrayed them all. He joined forces with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash to form the New World Order, NWO. And just like that, the hero was gone. No more Real American. No more vitamins and prayers. Now it was black bandanas, dark sunglasses, and ruthless aggression. The man who once told kids to believe in themselves was now smashing their heroes and mocking everything he once stood for. Fans were stunned. Some cheered. Others booed like their childhood had just been shattered. But one thing was certain. Hollywood Hogan had turned wrestling on its head. And the crazy part? It worked. The NWO became a cultural force. Ratings skyrocketed. Hogan was suddenly more relevant than ever. He wasn't just surviving the wrestling war, he was winning it. But even villains can't rule forever. And eventually the prodigal son had to come home.